Welcome to The Wing, the emotional and financial health check you never knew you needed. We provide tangible solutions for young women to build emotional health and wealth on their journey from school to motherhood. This is the podcast for young women in Australia navigating the big stuff: life, money, and motherhood. From high school to first homes, babies to bank accounts, we take you on an interactive listening journey that helps you make smart, empowered decisions every step of the way.
Hi, ladies. Welcome to another episode of the Wing podcast. Today, we are going to talk about how to say no assertively. Yes, I am reading from something called Module 6 under a topic of assert yourself. And yes, this was from my psychologist. So clearly, this was something I spoke to my psychologist about in one of my many sessions. And she gave me a very useful sort of document that outlines the different ways of saying no and how you can do that assertively without sounding rude, without feeling bad. These tactics all require a lot of practice because I feel like I'm still not quite there yet on my own journey with this, but I thought it'd be very worthwhile sharing with you some of these notes so that perhaps you can think about this for yourself in your relationship, in your friendships, in your family dynamic, and perhaps apply it even with your colleagues in a work situation. Maybe you can apply it to your life in a helpful way. So saying no. Many people have great difficulty saying no to others. Even people who are quite assertive in other situations may find themselves saying yes to things that they don't really want to do. Now, saying yes to something you don't really want to do can be appropriate in some situations, obviously. But for example, in a work situation, if your boss asks you to do something and you don't really want to do it, and it wouldn't be appropriate to practice your assertive skills and saying no, you may get the sack. So what we're talking about here is if you find yourself saying yes in other situations, for example, if a friend asks you to do something, which is a real inconvenience for you, and you end up saying yes, or if you find yourself volunteering for all sorts of jobs to the point that you are overloaded. So, what do we do in these situations? I think it's important to outline the effects of not being able to say no. So if you say yes when you really mean no, resentment and anger can build up towards the person you have said yes to, even though that person has actually done nothing wrong. And if you can relate to that, I think that confirms you are a human. You can also become increasingly frustrated and disappointed with yourself. And if you are taking on more than you can cope with, you can become overworked and highly stressed. And in the long term, not being assertive in this way can decrease your self-esteem and lead to depression and anxiety, which is pretty heavy if you think about it. That mental load that you've got in a simple one-word answer, be it yes or no, can really take a toll. So knowing how to manage that effectively, I think, is absolutely key. At the other end of the spectrum, some people are able to say no, but do so in an aggressive manner without consideration or respect for the other person. This may result in people disliking you or being angry and resentful. And obviously, this is something I think most of my listeners would be trying to avoid in saying yes to things so that they don't end up, making anybody upset or disappointed with them. Now, neither of these situations is good assertive communication. So let's get into it. Now, unhelpful beliefs. Why is it hard to say no? So we are all born assertive. Anyone who has spent any time around a toddler knows that they have no trouble saying no. I could definitely attest to that. It's funny that it's compared to a conversation that you might have with a toddler because there's no issue. They're happy to tell you no. They're happy to tell you yes as well, but sometimes it's really hard to decipher the truth. And I guess that maybe does carry on through to adulthood because we might be saying yes when we really mean no. So that's, I guess, the whole point of this. So as we grow older, we learn from our environment and our experience that it is not always appropriate to say no. So the social confines that we tend to live in can prohibit us from actually saying what we really feel in order not to disappoint. We can end up with a number of unhelpful beliefs about saying no that make it difficult for us to use this word. So some of these beliefs about saying no might be saying no is rude and aggressive. Saying no is unkind, uncaring, and selfish. Saying no will hurt and upset others and make them feel rejected. That was one. It's obviously my psychologist has given me this format, this list, and I've gone ahead and highlighted and made my own notes. But anyway, that was one of the main ones that I had underlined, because I never want anybody to feel hurt or rejected if I say no to something, which is why often I'll default and just say yes, because I think, okay, well then that way at least that person will know that I'm not rejecting them. But if it has a bit of wear and tear on me in the meantime, then I'll just have to deal with it. So again, that's an unhelpful belief. A few unhelpful beliefs is, if I say no to somebody, they won't like me anymore. Others' needs are more important than mine. I should always try and please others and be helpful. And another one I highlighted was, saying no over little things is small-minded and petty. That's a huge thing for me, because I think, it could be something so small, like, I don't know, someone dropping something off, or like doing, an act of service, or could be Jake suggesting something small, like, hey, could we move this piece of furniture to this different room because it's a bit of a hazard for the kids, or, or it doesn't quite fit in that space anymore, or it's getting really dirty, or whatever it is. And then me not being able to say no to that, because I feel like by saying no, it's being petty, and I'll just agree just to sort of, even though that might irritate me later, like that being a very, very small thing that really shouldn't affect anybody. So that's an example of that. So clearly something I underlined. It gave me a prompt as well to see if I could think of any other situations that saying no could be unhelpful. So saying no makes me look like the bad guy, or that I don't care. That was my own words. So that is exactly how I feel. Like, I don't want to say no because I don't want to come across like I don't care, or that I can't be bothered, or that I just don't want to. I am so cautious about, I obviously always want to make sure people around me feel included and happy and, and engaged. And then if I feel like I have to say no, then I feel like I'm the bad guy. So I don't want it to come across that way. Now, there's some ways that you can change your thinking about some more helpful beliefs about saying no. So I found this really helpful. So the unhelpful thoughts are not facts. So the ones we just outlined are not facts. They're just purely unhelpful thoughts. They are just thoughts and opinions that we have learned, and each of them can be replaced by a more helpful thought or opinion by saying no. So some of these, as an example, are: other people have the right to ask, and I have the right to refuse. I had underlined that one. So that one, obviously, that resonates with me. I'm not sure about you, but trying to reframe my thinking. Of course, that person has the right to ask that question, or that request, or make that suggestion. But in the same token, I do have the right to refuse. And I think refuse is probably too much of a strong word in that instance, because it's not that I want to refuse. It's that, well, I need to say no because I need to either protect my energy, protect my time, or juggle things, whether it's a busy week or energy is low or whatever it might be. But that it's okay to, or negotiate with that person and come back to them and say, hey, I'm actually, this has been great. This has been really helpful, actually, because if a suggestion comes to me about something, particularly if it's to do with a time requirement of mine, there's lots of things I need to factor in. So I need to factor in, is it kids or no kids? I need to factor in the fact that I don't know what my energy levels are going to be like on that day. And I'm recording this as I am 30 weeks pregnant. So that is the reason. That's the main reason for that. Because again, I need to protect that energy. Really think about what's important, and then maybe make a suggestion to whoever I'm speaking with, and say, okay, well, that particular time or day doesn't work, but can I let you know? Or maybe we could move it to, or I changed the activity. There was an example recently where there was a certain activity that I'd been invited to, and I thought, and I sort of worked myself up about not thinking that I'd be able to make it, or make it work with the kids. And then I ended up just reaching out to a friend of mine and suggested a different location, a different time, and without kids. And I thought, and that worked for both of us. And it was so much more enjoyable. I didn't stress about the interaction. I didn't worry about the time. I was in no rush. I wasn't being pulled at in 50 different directions by the toddlers. So that was an example of not feeling bad because I wasn't able to fulfill the first request. It was that, oh no, hang on, there's other ways to meet. It doesn't have to be in the first instance of how it was suggested. So another helpful belief about saying no. So when you say no, you are refusing a request, not rejecting a person. That I'd like circles refusing a request and underlined not rejecting a person. Again, that like goes hand in hand with the line above, and in that it's the request, it's not the person. It's like I hear a lot in work environments, blame the process, not the person. Because if someone's reaching out to you to do something or to arrange something, chances are you're probably friends with them. So or you have a relationship with them, or you want to have a relationship with them, whether that's work socially or within family. So looking at it through, it's not a rejection. We're just reframing the thinking to where it's the request that we want to change. Another one is when we say yes to one thing, we're actually saying no to something else. We always have a choice and we are constantly making choices. I've kind of had to have an underlying, I guess, mantra to help me make decisions about what we do with our time or what I do with my time, because my free time is quite limited. My free time consists of working. So there's a certain amount of hours I need to fulfill a week. So obviously that's the time, that's like a non-negotiable. Then there's a small window where I might have actual free time where it's just me, no kids, no Jake, and it's just me literally going to the mall to buy Christmas presents or whatever that task is. The mantra to make that plan is if a plan or a person doesn't benefit me, Jake, or the kids, it's a no. So that's what I think about when I'm making plans or if I'm being asked for plans. If it's not going to benefit us as a family collective in one way or another, then it's a no. And sometimes it's a case of something that might benefit the kids, but Jake and I have had a flat out week and we're super tired, but it's something that the kids are going to love and enjoy. So we're like, right, well, then that's a yes, because they're going to get something out of it. Another helpful belief about saying no is people who have difficulty saying no usually overestimate the difficulty that the other person will have in accepting the refusal. We are not trusting that they can cope with hearing no. By expressing our feelings openly and honestly, it actually liberates the other person to express their feelings. By saying no to somebody, it allows them to say no to your requests while still being able to ask for further requests. So again, it's conversational. The other person isn't making a plan to back you into a corner and to make you feel uncomfortable and to make you feel pressured. They're asking you because they're asking you. And your ability to say yes or no in that moment is going to depend on your headspace and your energy levels and what else you have on that week and if the kids are sick or not and the other external factors. But if you can remember that they're asking for feedback. So if you're able to give the feedback, if it's a simple yes, then great, that's the feedback. If it's a no, can we do a different day, or not for now, but I'll be in touch when I can, that's a response. So feeling comfortable and trying not to get in your own head, because this is obviously what I've done previously, is getting in my own head about it and worrying that, oh my gosh, that person is going to think I'm rejecting them again. It goes back to that rejection piece. I don't want them to feel that way. I'm just going to say yes to everything as soon as it comes in, then it's just less friction and I won't have to deal with it. But then the only person that burns out at the end of all of that was me. So if you can relate to that, that's a helpful way to rethink what your answers are and, go in with a negotiation, which sounds so silly because most of these things are beautiful plans and we all get decision fatigue over lots of things. What are we going to wear today? What are we going to have for dinner tonight? What are the kids going to do on the weekend? There's a lot of decisions, and those are just the easy ones. It doesn't take into account anything to do with finances or your relationships. So being able to take the friction out of these simple conversations or plan requests or put the ball back in the other person's court, that's something that works well with busy people or people that have lots of balls in the air at any one time, and I'll often throw to them and sort of say, all right, look, give them a really wide window. I'm free before the end of September, for example, on XYZ days each week, usually. Why don't you reach out to me when you've got some time on one of those days sometime in the next 4 to 6 weeks? And I feel like that's a really good opener, because then the person you're trying to make the plan with, or that's trying to make the plan with you, is more open to, oh, okay, pressure's off. I can probably just organise this last minute. If I've got a break in the day, you can say, come over for a coffee and catch up or whatever, come over for half an hour, come over for an hour, or catch up on a phone call or a voice note, whatever it might be. Now, the prompt in this document, the next bit, so it said, see if you can think of any others. So I came up with a couple, like what my own unhelpful beliefs about saying no were. So if I really needed help, I was worried that I've said no too many times and won't get the support when I really need it. So trying to strike that balance of saying yes enough times so that if I really do need to lean on that person or people, that I know that help will come back, which is so silly, because just because you say no to someone once or you need to change a plan or something, they're not going to just out you and say, oh, no, you said no to me last time, I'm not coming to help you with that. So that was a very unhelpful one. So I'm not sure if that's relatable, but I thought it was worth sharing. I also thought that in saying no is that I would be putting more pressure on Jake to be more involved with certain tasks or events or things. And I was scared that was annoying him. Like I thought that, oh, well, if I'm saying no, then that just means that he has to say yes. So that was a big roadblock for me as well. And I didn't want to putting extra pressure on Jake. So that's why I just would avoid saying no, because I'm like, oh, I'll do it. I'll take the hit. I'll take the hit. I'll take the hit. And then obviously you burn out from that, like I did. Those are some additional things that I'm wondering if any of my listeners have perhaps felt in similar ways, and just, again, reassuring you that you're human and you're not the only one. So that's the whole point. Now, sometimes to come up with a new thought, you will need to do a thought diary or behavioral experiment. So these techniques that we've just learnt about can be applied to your beliefs about saying no as they can to any unassertive belief. So you may not immediately believe these new beliefs or thoughts. That's quite normal. But you have been thinking the old thoughts probably for a really long time. So it will take some time for these new thoughts to become as automatic as the old ones were. So if you keep, see, practice makes perfect. So keep doing that to reassure yourself, and do what I've done. Write it down. Write down, if you can, maybe if you're listening to this podcast, you could be taking notes or writing down your thoughts at the same time. Use it as a tool. I'm passing this on as a tool so that you can actually figure out, how are you going to handle these situations in the future. Now, in terms of changing your behavior and how to say no, obviously keeping in mind you may have some unhelpful beliefs about saying no. So how to say no in a way that you're actually changing your behavior. So firstly, you can be straightforward and honest, but not rude, so that you can make the point effectively. So that's conducive to, I suppose, how most people would operate, in that clear is kind. You're being honest, but you're not being rude. So, and people appreciate that, because I love it when a friend of mine is honest with me. Like, I just have no energy to see anybody extra this week. We are having a red light week and we are just doing the bare minimum, and that's just where we are right now. And I'll be in touch when we get our heads above water. I'm like, I'm sorry that you feel that that's what's happening on your end, but thank you so much for being honest, because now I know where you stand. I know you're not avoiding me. I know you're not rejecting me. On the flip side I'm usually the one making the plans. So it's often that people are probably thinking all of this stuff about me, like, oh, how do I say no to Katey politely? So I don't know, here's some tips. As a rule, keep it brief. So yeah, you don't necessarily, obviously depending on the person, like if it's my parents, for example, or Jake's mum, like I'm going to give them some detail as to why I can't do a certain thing if it is a big deal. If it's a small thing, then doesn't it, need to worry that much. But keeping it brief is helpful, because I guess I feel like, you don't always need to burden everybody with every little detail that you're doing, but keeping it brief also gets that message across, and you can catch up in real time when you actually make whatever plan you're doing or whatever you're saying no to for now. Tell the person that you are finding it difficult. So again, that honesty piece, being polite, saying something like, thank you for asking, something along those lines to help with some lingo. Speaking slowly with warmth otherwise, no might sound abrupt. So I guess if you're in a phone call situation or you're in person with somebody, or, maybe that's a good one for a work scenario, or I'll get back to you, or can I have the night to think about it, or, things that can politely delay the conversation without sounding rude. Don't apologize and give elaborate reasons for saying no. It is your right to say no if you don't want to do things. So all of us don't want to do things. We're all little tiny toddlers inside. And that's okay, because why would everybody want to do everything all the time? We wouldn't. So I think understanding that about yourself and about the people around you is important, because if like, you need to say no to protect yourselves. And that's the other thing. If I feel like I'm saying yes to too many things, maybe the things are fine in the moment, but I know that sometimes overactivity can catch up with me and I'll end up with a migraine, or I'll end up unwell, or I'll make a mistake, or I don't know, something, and then my energy levels aren't at their best level to give to the kids or to Jake. So like, it can rob you in other ways if you don't nip it in the bud when you have an opportunity to. Remember that it is better in the long run to be truthful than breed resentment and bitterness within yourself. Again, this is talking to your own mind, to your own thoughts. If you are feeling, well, you're saying yes, 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 and all you're thinking is no, 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 then the resentment's just going to go on to the other person. And you're just going to resent them for, putting pressure on you, when in reality, they weren't. They probably weren't. And they were just asking a question that you were more than happy, you're more than open to answering. When saying no, take responsibility for it. Don't blame or make excuses. Change "I can't" to "I don't want to." Oh, I would need a lot of practice on that one. I personally would try and avoid the "oh, I can't because of this, 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 and this," or I would rather say something along the lines of, "Look, this week I just can't make it work." Oh, there you go. I said I can't. Anyway, they're saying say "I don't want to." I can't even put that in a sentence. Anyway, take that as you will. But "I don't want to" might be a little bit crass, and I think that might be a little bit rude. But I guess it comes back to being honest, right? So being honest about where you're actually at in that moment, rather than fuddling around thinking, I guess I'll say yes and then I'll cancel last minute, or, that's worse. That's so much worse. I would never do that. I would never say yes to something knowing I'm going to cancel later. I think a lot of people do it because they don't know how to say no. And if maybe they knew how to say no confidently, knowing that they're not rejecting the person, they're not, it's just not the right time. Because ultimately, that's kind of what it comes down to. It's the only thing we can't make more of is time. So if you're able to be honest in that moment, I think it's more helpful for everybody. Ways of saying no. So the direct no, I loved this bit actually. Okay, so there's the direct no. So when someone asks you to do something you don't want to do and you just say no. This has actually become a big joke in our household. Jake might say it. Do you want to go? Actually, this happens so much. Do you want to go for a walk? And I'll just say no. I don't explain it. I literally just say no, because I don't, because I've got only a certain amount of steps in the day that I can do at the moment. Being pregnant, I just can't. I just have to can that. As soon as that question comes in, it goes straight to the archive box in my brain. That's an example. But I don't apologize for it. It's saying don't apologize. The other person has the problem, but you do not have to allow him or her to pass it on to you. This technique can be quite forceful and can be effective with salespeople, which is so funny because I just gave an example about how when Jake, the salesperson, asks me if I want to go for a walk and I just say no. And it works. It lands with him. Anyway, that's a different situation. But what they're talking about here is obviously using it tactfully, but being clear, because clear is kind. And it's not like Jake's trying to sell a walk to me. He was just asking because he thought I might like to get some fresh air for once. Anyway, maybe that's a bad example. I'm not sure. Take it as you will. The next one is the reflecting no. So this technique involves acknowledging the content and feeling of the request, then adding your assertive refusal at the end. For example, I know you want to talk to me about organising the annual department review, but I can't do lunch today. Or, I know you're looking forward to a walk this afternoon, but I can't come. That's a nice one. The reflecting. So you're acknowledging that there's been a suggestion made, but just not up for it right now. Or again, need the night to sleep on it, or I'll come back to you when I've got a bit more headspace. These are things that generally people will understand. So don't be afraid to say them in that way. The other way of saying no is the reasoned no. So in this technique, you give a very brief and genuine reason for why you are saying no. For example, I can't have lunch with you because I have a report that needs to be finished by tomorrow. If someone said that to me, I would be like, well, that makes sense. sure, you should be doing your report, not faffing around at lunch with me. You've got a reason. And most of the time, you probably do have a reason. Like, this happens, I imagine, to all parents, and we haven't even started daycare or school yet. So, our friendship group for the kids, we are actually in full control of because they're our friends with kids. But oftentimes, we'll have conflicting birthday parties on weekends. So, I know March is a really busy month for us, and so is like September, October. And that's a mixture of our friends' kids' birthdays and also our own kids' birthdays. So it's becoming more and more common that we'll have a clash on a weekend. And they're usually, obviously, because we've got toddlers where everybody's operating around nap times. So, the parties are either in the mornings or in the afternoons. They rarely overlap lunchtime. And even if they did, we wouldn't be able to go because our kids would be asleep. But, you've got those clashes. So that's a good way of explaining a reasoned no as well, because it's sort of like, okay, well, we actually can't do that because kids will be asleep. Well, we can't do that because we've already accepted an invite for another party at that same day or that same time. So anybody with kids, that's an example for you that I'm sure you can relate to, particularly if you have school-aged kids, because they have lots and lots and lots of friends and probably lots and lots and lots of parties to go to. And, there's lots of things that come with that. So anyway, that's the reason no approach. Another one is the rain check no. So this is not a definite no. It is a way of saying no to the request at the present moment, but leaves room for saying yes in the future. They've said to only use this one if you genuinely want to meet the request. So, for example, I can't have lunch with you today, but I could make it sometime next week. So having the rain check no, I think is also a very fair, and this is what it's saying, like there's nice ways of saying no. It's a nice way of saying, hey, not right now, but next week I'll be in a better position to fit that in. Then, okay, fair enough. Someone said that to me, and it's been said to me many times. I'm like, oh, sure, makes sense. No worries. I'll have a look at my week next week and see what we can do. So it's not an issue. I guess it's not quite a rain check no if it's a no, not right now. I'll let you know, or I do let you know, but then I cancel last minute, or like those types of things, like those don't qualify as a rain check no. The rain check no is for rain check, not right now, but make a new time. And sometimes, like I know, like a lot of my conversations are with my mum friends. So often we might tic-tac back like multiple times on, we might have a date booked in and we'll work towards it, and then someone's sick the day before and we got a rain check, and then get up to the next rain check and someone else is sick, and then we got a rain check again. Type of stuff that happens, that's life. But the point of it is, like, it's not a definite no, it's just a way of saying no that's polite and obviously really honest, because again, if your kids are sick, no, we're happy to not meet up, that's totally fine, and same respect goes out. So that's that. Another one is the inquiring no. So as with the rain check no, this is not a definite no. It is a way of opening up the request to see if there is another way it could be met. For example, is there any other time you'd like to go? This one I love because this is what I was touching on before, because you can say no, not this, but that. But this can also mean you can change the location. So again, if you've got some boundaries in place, or you've got some time management that you're trying to manage, or you've got energy management, whatever it might be a way of, oh, hey, no, I can't meet you for a coffee in the morning, but I could actually meet you for a walk in the afternoon. Again, the negotiation, these things are simple things, but again, they can be really difficult things because you feel like, oh, it might just be easier to say yes to the coffee in the morning, but it's probably going to make me late to my lunch meeting and I'm going to have to rush there and dump the kids ASAP. So again, it's about working out, okay, is that yes worth it? Or could you just politely ask your friend if maybe you could go for a walk in the afternoon instead, or do a different day, whatever it is. Oh, this is a funny one. The next one is the broken record no. This can be used in a wide range of situations. You just repeat the simple statement of refusal over and over again. No explanation, just repeat it. It is particularly good for persistent requests. Hang on, it says, for example, and I'm going to have to turn the page because I'm trying to think of what possible example could this be. Oh, here we go. Okay, Dave. No, I can't have lunch with you. Kate, please, it won't take long. Dave, no, I can't have lunch with you. Kate, oh, go on, I'll pay. Dave, no, I can't have lunch with you. Okay, so I think this might be in a dating situation. So ladies out there, anybody dating and you just need to say a very assertive no, don't feel bad about it. Kate, if you're hassling Dave for lunch, maybe don't if he keeps saying no. Vice versa. No is a no. Anyway, that's a different topic, but that was the last one. So to summarize, saying no can be difficult for a lot of people. And that is why we are recording this episode. Empowering yourself, knowing that it's okay to say no. And, the more people that know this, the better. As toddlers, we don't have any trouble saying no. But as we learn from our environment and our experience, we can start to have trouble with it. So just listen to that little toddler inside of you that we all have. Or maybe you have a toddler in your house. Well, take a leaf out of their book because they're probably onto something with this no business. Saying yes when we really mean no can lead to stress, resentment, and anger. That is a big point of this. If we have trouble saying no, it is often because we hold a number of unhelpful beliefs about saying no. These can be changed by realizing that they are just opinions and not facts. You can also use a thought diary or behavioral experiments to change your unhelpful beliefs. So the key there, practice. Practice it. Practice it with your partner. Practice it with your dog. Practice it with your toddlers. Practice it with your parents. Practice it with your friends. Practice it with your colleagues. It's always going to be a situation where you're going to have to say no to something. So being able to be aware of what those unhelpful beliefs are and then flip them on their head and think about the helpful ways that you can navigate those. There are some guidelines to saying no. These include keeping it brief, being clear, and being honest. Clear is kind. I'm pretty sure that was a Brené Brown quote in a book. Brené Brown, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. So just letting you know, quoting that one, I did not come up with that. Jake actually came home with that book after a conference once and they've got it all over their office. And I think, yes, that's where it should be. I want it all over my house. Like, clear is kind. I think it's a great mantra and it's a nice reminder to know that it's actually not rude to say no. And lastly, there are some different ways to say no. These include the direct no, the inquiring no, the rain check no, the reasoned no, and the broken record no, which is Dave and Kate on an awkward date situation. So hopefully, ladies, that was something a little different to what we've been talking about. And again, I referenced a document that my psychologist gave me. It was from the Center for Clinical Interventions. Oh gosh, I need a lot of those, a lot of interventions. Maybe this has been helpful and hopefully you can learn how to say no in a more positive and confident way. And if you know somebody who has trouble saying no, feel free to pass them on this podcast so that you can assure them that they are not a crazy person and that it's a very human-like instinct to not want to say no and upset other people. On the other hand, there might be people that have no worries at all saying no. And as I said, most of those people probably include our toddlers. So listening to them might actually be quite rewarding after all, if we look at it through a different lens. Thank you so much, ladies, for listening to another episode of the Wing podcast. If you like the content, like it, follow it, share it, subscribe to it. I will be creating more and having more guests and hopefully providing more helpful tips and tricks for you. We will chat again soon.
Enjoyed the episode? Hit follow and check out _wingpod Oz on Instagram for a dose of wisdom getting you on the right path to success.